I need to know your favorite movie and why, because that's just an important conversation we always have to have.
So, favorite movie, Top Gun. Growing up, I grew up next to March Air Force Base. When I lived in San Diego, we were near Naval Pier or whatever it's called. It's not Naval Pier, but it's slipping my mind what it's called. I wanted to fly planes. And when I walked into the Navy office at 17 years old, they said, "You ain't flying our planes," because my vision was gone. They said helicopters. I didn't want to fly helicopters.
Welcome to the On the Edge podcast with your host, Scott Groves.
Hey, ladies and gentlemen, it's Scott Groves with the On the Edge podcast. I'm here with my old Facebook friend, Alex Jimenez. And much like me, he's a loan officer. He specializes in working with veterans. He was very humbly telling me how he only closed 100 VA deals last year, which for those of you in the business, because this 2024, we're trying to just bring more business-centric podcasts to you. If you're in the mortgage business and you closed over 100 deals in 2023, you're a rock star. Like there's just no way to slice it. Yeah, there's some mega branches that are doing amazing numbers and making us all jealous. But if you're an individual sole practitioner just slinging loans and you did over 100 loans in 2023, you've got something special going on. So we're going to dig in a little bit to Alex's backstory. I know both of his siblings are veterans, which is one of the reasons why he has a passion for this space. Hey, man, where are you at? Where does life find you? Give us the 60-second Reader's Digest on Alex.
Yeah, so first and foremost, thank you so much for having me on. I greatly appreciate it. I am located in south of Nashville, Tennessee. I've been an originator now for 19 years, which made me feel really old the other day when I had to update my NMLS profile. And I'm like, golly, I've been doing this long. I have my hands in a lot of other things besides being an originator, which helps reduce some of the stress. But at the end of the day, I'm a branch manager. I'm with Ross Mortgage. But I'm really focused on staying tuned in on my own business and kind of keeping things going versus managing people. So
tell us a little bit, 19 years, man. Like I've got you beat by a couple of years, but not a lot.
Yeah.
Just talk about that, man. How'd you get into the business? Like huge evolution over our time in the industry. Obviously right. 2005-ish, 2006-ish, you've seen the crash, things rebuilding, things becoming more compliant, huge run up. Now it's pretty slow. Talk a little bit about your journey. How'd you get into the mortgage business? Why? And why are you still sticking around?
So it's kind of funny. So everything you saw in The Big Short was mostly true as far as the behaviors of loan officers back in those days, right? I got into the business because I was a sales and marketing manager for a development company. I used to live in Iowa. It moved me down here and I was supposed to move to different sites. I elected not to do it. I had a buddy of mine that he was a VP of some sort for Chase, and he was offered a position as the man in charge for People's Choice Home Loans, which is a subprime lender. I didn't want to leave. He said, "What do you know about mortgages?" I didn't even know it had a T in it at that time. And he said, "How about I get you a job?" We got the job, and I didn't know anything. I didn't know acronyms. I was going to these offices as an account executive, and they were talking about DTI, LTV, FICO, all this other stuff. No clue what any of it was, but I winged it. And then eventually got into the wholesale. Well, I was in the wholesale side. The broker side of things, which took me up through the crash. And, it's been a great journey ever since. A lot of people talk about how bad or how exhausting the mortgage industry can be, which I agree with some of those points some of the times, but we're also very spoiled. We're in an industry where we can make unlimited amounts of money as long as we do the work that it takes in order to get there.
Yeah, it's pretty funny when people complain about being in the mortgage industry. I get it. You get accustomed to a certain lifestyle. There are client concerns. We have one of those rare jobs where you have to be able to do business to business with realtors. So like B2B sales. And then you got to take off the B2B sale hat and put on your B2C sale hat to like talk to consumers. So it is a stressful, challenging job, but we make a whole lot of money and we're not out in the 110-degree heat digging ditches for a living. So It's like we got to kind of take it in stride, right? Did you ever have like a complete dog shit job before you got into the mortgage industry where you're like, thank God I'm not doing that anymore?
So even better. I have a passion. I'm a car guy. I'm a motorcycle guy. Anything with the motor I enjoy. And during the crash, I'm like, screw this. I'm going to go build motorcycles. And so I did. Except that's 12 hours a day on cold concrete. It's back-breaking work, and it was not fun. And I did that until about my second paycheck, right? I got that big whopping $400 and something after taxes, 2 weeks worth of work. And I said, what the hell am I doing? And I called up my old boss and said, I'm coming back. And back I came.
Yeah. People who don't do or had never done manual labor for a living, they don't understand how taxing it is on your body. Like same thing. My dad was a mechanic growing up, and then they managed like Ryder truck rentals and U-Haul. So you're constantly moving, washing trucks. Even when he was like a regional manager, I remember he'd show up late and be like, oh yeah, we got stuck. We had to wash 20 trucks. It's like, I'm sure at 45 years old with 2 kids and, like a regional divisional manager of a company, his idea of success was not that he was still going to be washing trucks, and it just crushed his body, right? It's like those jobs hurt. And so if you're a loan officer or a realtor and you're complaining about how tough it is because you got to make 10 calls a day, maybe we just shut up and work a little harder.
Right. Hey, your dad and I have something in common too. In my early years of college, I worked at a place called Decker Truck Lines, and my job was washing the trucks. And so that is back-breaking work, and you're always wet. And so it's bad.
So I was a pretty well-behaved teenager. Like, I'd get in a little bit of trouble. I was like really chasing girls. That was my thing. But I didn't drink. I didn't do drugs. I wasn't getting in trouble at school. I was on the wrestling team, and our coach kept us pretty much on the straight and narrow. But I remember after like the last wrestling tournament, I think in my junior year, we all crashed out at the one person's house whose parents were out of town, and we got, quote unquote drunk, which I would come to learn later, the tolerance for alcohol goes up dramatically, because the version of drunk when you're in 11th grade versus like what I could take back a couple years into the Army was totally different. But I remember getting home the next morning just hungover, blasted. My dad knew exactly what happened, and he just gave me a gallon of water and shook my head, and he's like, hey, there's 20 U-Hauls that need to be cleaned. And we're up in like Palmdale, California, where it's 110 degrees in the summer. So I'm like dehydrated, dying, hating life. And I think if it wasn't for the Army, I may have never drank again, because that day felt so disgusting, washing trucks in the heat hungover. It was brutal. It was brutal. So I can't wait till I get to impart the same lesson on my kids.
I know one day will come for me and mine as well. I can't wait. As an adult, sometimes, you talk about being in the Army and drinking. We're loan officers. We throw down, right?
Right.
And I know from my brothers being Marines, like I can outdrink some Marines, which is an accomplishment. I should get a ribbon for that. But there's times as a loan officer, we wake up and we're like, oh man. But like you said, it's 70 degrees in my office right now.
Right.
We're not doing back-breaking work. So yeah, we're good to go.
So you get back into the industry, obviously, 2009, lots of regulation, hard to get a loan done. People are all trying to find their own way of carving out their niche in the business, right? I remember there was a time, maybe he's watching the episode, there was a guy, Joe Parisi, awesome loan officer in my area. I could do nothing against him. He was more seasoned. He was smarter. He was better. He worked at a company that had better rates, but I had to find a way into this world of realtors, right? And so I remember for the longest time, I just knew every single guideline about the TCF second mortgage, and I advertised myself as like the FHA alternative, right? So if you've got somebody who's self-employed, who's got 10% down but doesn't want to do an FHA loan, I'm your guy. And I think we even had another product that'll allow you to do a HELOC up to like 95%. So that's how I carved out some way to compete against Joe Parisi and maybe have some value proposition to steal some business and some realtors away from him, because he just like owned the street that I was on with 5 or 6 different brokerages. What about you, man? How did you carve out this idea of like, I'm going to go all in and be the VA guy?
So it's funny. We had this rep. There's a company called Franklin American. I'm sure you've heard of it somewhere along the lines. We had this rep. Her name was Rhonda McDonald. She came in and everybody would oogle over Rhonda McDonald, right? I did something different. She was very attractive, but I took information from her. They had this pamphlet. It was Understanding the VA Home Loan Benefit. And business was dead. I had plenty of time to read, so I read it cover to cover to cover to cover to cover to cover. I ended up with an individual who was a police officer out of Clarksville who was a veteran, and I just had this incredible bond with him, right? I was able for the first time, because I was always, yes, sir, no, that's a lovely car. Yes, this is this with your house, to be able to kind of let my hair back, so to speak, and say things I would normally say to other human beings, like F this, I think that is shitty or whatever, right?
Right.
And I felt that connection with them. And so I knew I wanted to help more people like him. I grew up, my grandfather was in the Navy. You already hit it. My siblings are Marines. You can't say were, that's offensive.
Yeah, they get all butthurt when you say they were Marines.
Right.
Once a Marine, always a Marine. It's like, bro, it's been 23 years and you didn't even do a combat tour. I'm going to say you were a Marine. Hey, this quick interruption is brought to you by me, Scott Groves, the host of the On the Edge podcast. This podcast is brought to you by me. I'm a loan officer who can help you with a mortgage in all 50 states across the United States. I also coach loan officers. So if you are a home buyer who's looking to get a mortgage, if you're a realtor who's looking to partner with an awesome loan officer, or if you're a loan officer looking for coaching, get in touch with me. It's those sources of revenue that allow us to produce this podcast and get out a new episode to you every week for the last couple of years. So if you're looking for a mortgage, if you're looking for a mortgage lender to partner with, or you're looking for a mortgage coach, I'm your guy. Now back to your regularly scheduled programming. Anyway,
Exactly.
I digress.
Exactly. So, but, it was one of those things. And I realized there was this class of people that were just extremely grateful for what it was that we were doing, right? And then I took a step back and I realized that no matter what it is I do, I can't do the things I do without these people standing in front of me, protecting me, and allowing me to operate within the confines that I do. And so it became, to say a focus, I don't even know that that's the right word, but it was like, this is what I want to do. I'm passionate about this. And so I continued to develop in that direction. And that became my niche product, so to speak. Everyone else was trying to figure out, Alt-A still kind of exists in conventional loans, FHA, and I'm over here doing VA and understanding it at a different level. And I think the thing is I just pushed that message so consistently and so much. And here's the thing. We like to say things like, I'm in the VA space. I'm a VA specialist, which that's fine. You can understand every portion of the guideline of VA. But what about when the guy calls you up and says, hey, I'm having trouble with my VA disability claim. Do you know anyone that can help? And you can say, you need to call this person. They're a VSO. You need to get a hold of them, or somebody from the DAV, or helping them get their tax exemption. You got to go above and beyond. And that is what makes somebody a specialist. And that's what I adhered to.
Yeah, I love that. And as you were starting to work with veterans, what were some of the surprises, right? Because like you and I, we've been doing this long enough. We know all the myths that clients, sellers, and realtors, the uneducated ones, say. Oh, VA loans are harder to close, and the appraisal always comes in below the contract price, and there's all these fees that the seller has to pay. False, 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 false. But what have been some of the biggest surprises of working with the veteran community and or trying to get those veterans loans accepted on an offer?
Some of the biggest surprises, which shouldn't come as a surprise, is the loyalty. Man, you want to talk about men and women that years down the road, they still got your number, and they reach out and they say, hey, I need your help again. The loyalty is unmatched. Listen, my mom could have used another loan officer before some of my veteran clients would have. Right. So that's one of the things. The other thing is, you don't realize the prejudice that exists within the real estate community as it pertains to the VA home loan because of beliefs like there's no skin in the game. Really? I got a buddy named Brian Myers missing 3 limbs. There's no skin in the game. He's got lots of skin in this game, right? And so when you look at people like that, you become, it almost infuriates you that somebody would say something like that. I don't expect real estate agents to take an offer that is not greater than another offer they have on the table because it's a veteran. I expect them to give them a fighting chance at submitting a good offer at an opportunity to get their piece of home ownership, which they have fought in most cases because our wars, has lasted so long. They have fought to preserve and protect. And let's at least give them a fighting chance. The fact that we could not see that, it's disgusting, but it's real.
Yeah. I'll never forget this conversation, and I'm embarrassed that I can't remember the realtor because I wish I could interview him and have this conversation. I talked to a realtor, and it's somewhere in LA, right? So the prices are going to be a little absurd, but it was a starter home, quote unquote, for like $760,000, right? A 2-bedroom, 1 bath in like an up and coming neighborhood. And I understand that that's not everybody's experience because not everybody lives in a major metropolitan area like LA. So scale the price down for whatever your local price is, right? But this is a starter home. And I called the agent. I think it was actually Ramiro. I'm going to call and ask him if he still believes this. And I was like, hey, Ramiro, you know me. I know you. I just want to let you know this client's only putting 5% down. Frankly, they're a veteran. They could have put 0% down, but they wanted to show that they had some skin in the game because we know that every realtor is worried about that. We've got them fully underwritten up front, just checking all the boxes, right? And Ramiro, I'm pretty sure it was Ramiro. He cut me off and he was like, hey, man, just so you know, it's cool. I like buyers with less money down. And I was like, what? And he goes, yeah, man, especially here in LA, you get somebody with 50% down from mommy and daddy. they want to grind you on the inspection. They think they should get a deal. They're always threatening to back out of the deal because they have so much money down they can go buy anywhere. When I've got somebody who's 0, 5, 10% down, I really like it because that person's just excited to get the offer accepted. They've really had to think through, can I actually afford this place with limited money down? And he's like, I just feel that they're more committed buyers. And I remember at that moment saying, oh, God bless you. Like, can I please record this and send this to the 2,000 realtors I know that think that like, oh, well, the client has more money down. It must be an easier deal to close. Because it's like, no, that's not the case. So right. I hate to belabor this point, but I think it's so important. How are you having the conversation with the listing agents to advocate for your veterans? Because I think this is the stuff that other lenders need to learn so that they can make those calls, advocate on behalf of their veteran to have a fighting chance to get the deal accepted.
So major thing, everybody needs to do this all the time on every deal, especially VA deals. You pick up the phone, you call the listing agent. So my agents know when an offer is being submitted, they let me know, hey, I'm going to submit this offer at 3:30 today. Here's the seller's agent's information. Go ahead and reach out to them, right? So at 3:20, I'm picking up the phone. I'm saying, hey, Scott, this is Alex over at Ross Mortgage. Just want to give you a buzz. Listen, I know that my clients are putting an offer on 123 Main Street, which is a listing of yours. It is a VA offer. And here's the thing I want you to know. I verified their income, their assets. We pulled their certificate of eligibility, right? We go through all those steps. Not only do I specialize in helping veterans achieve the dream of home ownership, but we've also went through all the other factors as well. I've been doing this 19 years. These are really well qualified clients. And I know there's some myths that exist that you're aware of. What are some of those things that you may have heard that may stop you from accepting this offer? And I shut up, right? Because as loan officers, we have a hard time just being quiet. And I let them answer. And they're like, well, they can't pay for the termite inspection. You know what? I've understood where you've heard that before because I've heard it myself. However, that is incorrect. They are not. They can pay for the termite inspection. Your seller is not required to. I know the TAR or the Tennessee Area Realtors contract says they have to, but that is false information in that document. I can send you the circular from VA that states that. What else have you heard? And sometimes they'll say nothing. Sometimes they'll say additional things. And then I assume the close. Fantastic, Scott. Thank you so much for your time. Again, if you need anything from me, please feel free to reach out. I look forward to a smooth and seamless closing with you and your client. Period. Done.
It's almost like you said that a time or two.
A time or two, right? But the assumption, right? So again, any deal, what are some of the questions that you may have that surround this particular product that you have concerns over? Boom, boom, boom. And if they ask about the, well, handrail, well, this, well, that, okay, well, tell me, is there any specific issues about the property that you have concerns about that would stop you from accepting this offer? Well, yes, there's no handrail. Well, how many stairs are on the back porch? 2, good to go, right? So if you confront those things on the front end and assume the close, my belief is you have a higher probability of getting the offer accepted.
Yeah. And by the way, everything you just said, you could relate that to a conventional offer, a jumbo offer, a 50% down offer. Like the amount of information that realtors have accidentally let slip out when I just ask a simple question like the one you just asked. Hey, what concerns do you have about this offer? They'll start telling me, although they would never tell the other realtor, they'll start telling me all this stuff. Well, I'm a little concerned, Scott, because we have this other offer at $1,430,000 and they're 50% down cash and they've got a 5-day contingency. I don't know if you guys can match that. I'm like, oh, well, I don't know. Let me go back to the clients and see, what the options are. And like, if you just ask good questions and you nailed it, Alex, then shut your fucking mouth. People will give you all the information that they need to feel comfortable, right?
Yeah. And ask them this, because this is something that's missed often. If we know we're in a challenging situation where there's multiple offers, right? I say, let me ask you this. What's the most important thing about this particular offer? Is it time? Is it money? Or is it flexibility? Because it may not be money. I've had clients in the past that it was time. Hey, they don't move to their new house for 45 days and every offer we have needs to close early. They need occupancy. Guess what? Pick up the phone. Hey, I just talked to Scott. Scott said that they need some flexibility. So do your client a favor and go there and write, that you're willing to give them occupancy or something of that nature because you're appeasing to a stress point in their life. And guess what? You're a breath of fresh air when they get them. They're like, well, time's not a concern anymore. Well, you're not going to charge me $100 a day to stay in my own home that I raised my kids in. I like this.
Yeah. Yeah. I want to go back in time a little bit because, you know, a lot of people here are like, oh, well, yeah, great. He did 100 deals last year, 120 deals last year. That must just be easy for him because where he is. You know, let's talk about building that brand, right? Because you and I have been to all the conferences, right? People come back and they say, oh, buyers are liars. I don't want to work with realtors. I want a professional referral. I'm all in on CPAs and divorce attorneys. I'm like, okay, cool. That's a great idea. And just know you're going to focus on that and eat shit for 2 years, hearing a lot of no's before you build that business. So I think people hear things like this and they're like, cool, I'll be a veteran advocate, or I'll be a divorce attorney only, or I'll be a CPA only. Can you talk about how you built that I'm the VA guy brand? And also, you know, how long did it take?
Forever. Forever is an understatement. I remember I worked for a company called Reliance First Capital, and I was in the back of the place. I got pushed to the back because I wanted to focus on purchases, and it was a refi house, right? And so they pushed me to the other side of the office. I used to sneak out the door to go teach classes and stuff. Like the front desk lady knew me. She'd allow me to slide in. If someone's, hey, where's Alex at? Oh, he went to the bathroom. I'd be gone for hours, but I was working. And that's the biggest challenge that people have. They want to focus on something, but they don't truly focus on it. They don't work on the things they say they want to work at. And so I would go out and I would try to teach these classes, right? I'd become involved in a lot of VA activities. In fact, there was one morning, I woke up at like 4 o'clock in the morning. My mind does this. My mind's weird like this. It says, you got to do something. I said, okay, what do you got to do, Alex? You got to go to Walmart. All right, let's go to Walmart. Went to Walmart. What I ended up doing is I ended up throwing a bunch of, I was broke at the time. I ended up throwing a bunch of $5 toy packages that Walmart sells. I'm sure they're $15 now in my cart. I got 2 cart loads of stuff, right? And I said, I'm going to go to my office and I'm going to wrap blue for boys and red for girls. And I'm going to take these to the VFW and I'm going to tell them, here's a list of everything that's wrapped up. It's numbered 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. If you have a veteran that comes in and they can't provide for their family, have them grab some of those gifts and take them home. And then I said, I can't wrap all these myself. So I invited people. Here's what it did. I'm committed to serving veterans, not only for my benefit, but also to reciprocate, right? Because we take. We're not taking in malice, but we're receiving. And so we should give. And so I demonstrated the give, which helped build what? It helped build the validity that what I say, that what I do is actual and factual. And so people buy into that. Now people are paying attention. It wasn't for my benefit. My mind told me I had to do something. My heart told me I had to do something. I didn't have the money to do it. I did an event called Weenies with Warriors, okay? I had to put on a credit card. It was $300 and something. Again, I was broke. I had to put on a credit card to have this event at the VFW. And I met a person who at that time, he was a machine gunner in the Marine Corps. He was one of 2 people that survived. Everybody else was killed, okay? He was dealing with very bad things. The evil that was living inside his heart at the time was unbearable. He was a raging alcoholic, okay? And I won't disclose his name for his privacy purposes, although he would welcome it. He's been sober. He is one of the biggest advocates for what we do. Why? Because he saw it firsthand when he was going through his problems, the things we would do to help him. And so when people believe and they buy into what it is that you actually claim to do and demonstrate, your brand molds itself. It's not always what you can do, it's what you won't do some of the time as well. So if you want to be that jumbo space person, go where jumbo people hang out. If you want to be the investor guy, go where investors hang out. But if you want to do those things and you want to demonstrate that, live it in your core and be it, or don't do it.
Man, I feel like we could end the podcast there, but that'd be a really short podcast. We'll have to like recap that at the end or something. But, you know, speaking of personal trauma, whether it's from being in the military or just life, you know, I know you've experienced some shit and I don't know how much you want to share, or you could tell people you don't want to share at all. That's fine too. But I know life has not been a bed of roses for you either. So is there anything that you want to talk about there? Just challenges you've dealt with and having to overcome those?
Yeah. So, you know, people look at where I'm at in life. If you get on Facebook, you look and you're like, God damn, Alex, he's got cars, he's got houses, he's got watches, he's got kids, he's got all this stuff, right? And you look, and when you look through that periscope, you see today, okay? What you don't see is the kid that was physically abused for 12 years of his life. You don't see the person that was starved, the person that drank out of a toilet because he couldn't get access to water, the person that was locked in his room for 24 hours and peed in his fucking toy box so he had a place to go to the bathroom. You don't see the person that was sexually abused. You don't see all these things because you weren't present at that point in my life. And guess what? It's okay. You don't have to. And people always say, I'm so sorry for what you went through. Please don't be so sorry for me, because God handed me challenges that he knew I could handle. He said, you're a warrior. I have to put you through these things. You're not going to like them. It's going to fuck you up really bad. But you have the ability to grow and to share these messages and become a person that people can look at and they can respect. And so that's what I did. So all the things, and listen, as an adult, you want to talk about anger? Fuck, if you had a face and it was 2:00 in the morning, I wanted to fight you just because you existed, because I was angry. Drinking, like I said, I could outdrink a couple Marines I know. There's practice that went into that. I'm not saying I'm proud of it, but
Right.
that's how I coped with those things in life. To look at where I have arrived to, it's a struggle. If you knew me from point A to point B, or even if you knew me from point C to now, you'd say, you ain't the same fucking person. And it's because I chose to not make excuses for what I had lived through and to be the person I wanted to be.
Yeah. And how did you get through that, man? And by the way, I am sorry that you had to go through that. I'm not sorry that you are who you are, but I mean, it's just tragic that kids have to go through any type of abuse, much less what you just described. But was it counseling? Was it MDMA therapy? Was it like finding a purpose in work? Like, what helped you through that anger where you're not, getting blasted drunk every night looking for somebody at 2 a.m. to take that anger out on in a bar fight?
So what rescued me from it was my daughter. There's a time where a human being enters your life before they enter. And you're like, holy shit, I've got to change who I am. Now, granted, my daughter's 9 years old, which means even when she was born, the alcohol abuse did not stop. It continued, probably heavier for a window of time when my mom passed away from a drug overdose. There was about a 2-year span I spent every night. I would drink a fifth of vodka every night, go home. I'd come to, I was a fucking top producer during this time. And I'd get home and I'd down my Fast Eddie vodka or whatever it's called, something Eddie vodka. That was my one of choice. It was cheap and I can go home and drink it. Meanwhile, my fiance is on standby watching this happen, watching me destroy myself, right? Because I couldn't process mentally the regrets and the things I didn't have of forgiveness. And so, but then you stop and you're like, I've got to be the person that my stepdad wasn't for me. The person that when my mom was addicted to drugs wasn't for me. And I can continue to sit here and kill myself, or I can turn the page, stop being a fucking victim, and man up and do something. Now, listen, that's easy to say.
Right. I was just going to say, most people have to have a run-in with the law or court-ordered AA meetings or a come to Jesus moment, right? Where it's like you find religion. Like, for you, was it really just making a choice, or was there a support network there?
No, it was a choice. So I did have DUIs. That didn't stop me. Bro, I dated a fucking bartender for a year and a half. Like, best relationship ever. Got drunk for pennies on the dollar, and I got to sleep with her at the end of the night, right? Cool. Right. Not cool. But it ended up in a DUI. But you progress past that. The overcoming everything with my mother and being a better father was a choice. It truly was. It was internal, and me knowing that I can't continue down this road because I want to kill myself being in the state that I'm in right now. And years prior, I did try to kill myself. I sat in the closet with a fucking shotgun in my mouth. The only thing that stopped me was the police coming down with AR-15s and taking me to jail, right? But I couldn't leave my kids like that. My thought went to this. I have another one on the way, which at that time, not now, I had another one on the way, a son now. And where would I be, right? Who's going to provide for them? Who's going to be the example? If I put a gun in my mouth, what's that going to do for them? And I had to overcome those things. And I didn't have the support. I just had faith in doing what I needed to do as a human being. When I say faith, I'm not talking about religion. I didn't seek out religion. I'm talking about the choice to be a better father or to continue to be the person I was. And I would reflect to myself and say the piece of shit that I was. But guess what? There's somebody that's listening to this podcast right now that is wearing those shoes that I used to wear. And you're not a piece of shit. You're going through hard times and you got to find solutions to them. So I had to discover who I was and who I wanted to be and commit to that and then progress. And I'm an egotistical person, meaning I have to be the top producer, not because I need the money, but I want my name on the fucking wall. So when you walk by, you have to look at it. That's who I want to be. And so I had to change that mindset and continue to focus on being that person.
And getting through that, making the choice. I don't know. I'm maybe putting words in your mouth. Are you sober now? Like you don't drink at all, or have you been able to control that?
No, I still drink. I don't drink to the level that I used to,
Yeah,
right?
but you have a drink.
Yeah. I mean, I saw you in Vegas, right? We
Yeah.
were over there. We were having drinks and stuff. I didn't have to go anywhere. Now I am mindful. Okay. I'm not going to sit there and just throw back whatever. I mean, I'm going to drink. I'm going to have a good time. But one thing I taught my brother's 27, big bodybuilder. He's a big dude. You can never lose control, right? You can drink, you can have fun, but the second you get too drunk, you're losing control of who you are. Mistakes happen. And when you're his size, mistakes could be bad, right?
Yeah.
Or when you're my size or anybody's size. But the fact of the matter is I learned that you can't lose control. You can have fun. You just can't lose control of the steering wheel, not from a literal standpoint. You have to be in controlled environments, which is why I don't go to the clubs, why I don't do things like that. I'll go to a bar,
Right.
but I want to sit there and conversate with my friends and socially drink. I don't want to be the bludgeon alcoholic that would pass out at night and wake up in the morning and be like, is anybody mad at me? Did I call my fiance a bitch last night? Like, what did I do? I don't want to be that person.
Yeah. Yeah. And how did your fiance hang through all this?
I don't fucking know. I don't. Listen, if I was her, I would have been gone. I mean, I went from 200 pounds and fucking ripped and in shape to at my highest, which I had gotten away from alcohol for the most part at this point, but I got up to 273 pounds. I was a fat, nasty fucker, right? And that was a choice, but alcohol compounded the way to get there.
Right.
Like she should have been gone. I should be paying child support. I should be talking to you about how much I pay in child support right now, but she stuck through it. How? Why? The only thing I can think of is she saw my loss that I went through with my mother and said, I can't let him experience this again. I'll stick it out. She probably had an escape plan. And when I changed, it probably canceled that. But I don't know how she's still here.
Man, that's amazing. And kids doing well?
Oh, yeah. My kids, it's funny. You want to talk about having no time? Go get a daughter that plays travel softball and open up a league and have 4 divisions in that league that you manage and then be the softball commissioner and then have a son that plays travel ball and then do mortgages and real
Don't
estate.
do any of that. Don't do any of
all
that.
that shit.
I saw this comedy sketch on Instagram where they were like, you know who screwed up? You know who screwed up sports? It's all the men who want their kids to do better. And, I got to be on travel ball. And the comedian was like, oh, really? We have to fly to Connecticut for you to get your ass kicked? There's not some Mexican kids around the corner at the park that can fuck you up in soccer? And he just goes off on this tangent. It's hilarious. So anyway, tell us a little bit about what you think. We're filming this right at a moment in time, August 5th, 2024. This will be out in a couple weeks, probably before the end of the month. We're starting to see a little change in the economy for the negative in some ways, meaning inflation still seems to be sticky. Stock market the last couple of days has started to go into that correction that we all kind of expected. The nice thing is that when the stock market's getting its ass kicked, interest rates tend to come down. So it's a little bit better for people like us in the mortgage space. But what do you foresee, or what is your crystal ball telling you about interest rates, about the housing market, about the economy? We're obviously going into what's going to be a very hotly contested election, and that even changed like 2 weeks ago. I mean, I can't think of any time other than like post 9/11 where there's been this much dramatic news. It's like 3 weeks ago there was an assassination attempt on the former president, and that's like old news now. It doesn't even make like the 15th page of the paper. So what's your crystal ball say for like how this is all going to affect the economy, or what loan officers or buyers or realtors should be thinking about?
So it's funny you bring that up. This morning, I do all my thinking in the shower. I'm imagining, because it's this little cage and my kids can't be like, Dad, 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 Dad. So I do all my thinking in there. I'm like, we're in a fucked up time, right? You have this stuff going on in Japan. You've got these election things. You got all these things moving. So what do I think? I think if you have not reached out to your previous database of people that you financed in the past, you are getting too late to do so, because their servicers are doing it now. So please do me a favor and do that if you want to remain in this business. Because here's the shift that I would predict in my crystal ball, right? My crystal ball is nowhere as clear as Barry Habib's, but it's kind of clear. And that's, we're going to move into a time where these buyer's representation agreements are going to not be signed. And so you're going to see some struggle on the real estate side of things, is my belief. And you're going to see maybe a little bit of a pullback. And if you don't have something that's going to support your lifeline, that's going to benefit some of these people in the meantime, you might starve. And so we also have to partner with our real estate partners to show them the value that we can provide to them. which means that we have to go the extra mile to make sure they have enough assets to cover that buyer's representation agreement that they signed. If they don't, we need to let them know, hey, by the way, they have enough for the down payment. You're going to have to get your comp paid. We're going to have to figure that out. You're going to see a panic. You're going to see a purge of both sides, real estate and mortgage. I welcome both. You know why? It's going to clean the industry. The industry has a way of cleansing herself. It's almost like shower time, right?
Yep.
And so we do that. I do believe rates will start to pull downwards. I don't believe they're going to pull down like what our clients want. They want 7-2. It ain't fucking happening. If it does, be scared, But we may see, like, I priced out an Earl today at 5.125. Like, cool, let's do it. Right? Yeah, let's help this veteran. But you have to have ways as a provider, male or female, doesn't matter what you are, as a provider for your household to continue your flow of business, which means you have to provide more value, which means we have to do Zoom presentations with our clients and show them options. We also have to reiterate the value for using a buyer's agent because they are making huge financial decisions. We're going to see this wave of buy here, pay here, so to speak, real estate agents, where it's $1,000 up front, $200 a showing or something like that, almost like an Uber Eats of real estate. But if you want to remain a person that is a vital asset to this industry, we have to find ways to strengthen our value. And so, again, if there's one thing I can suggest, reach into that database, talk to those people, and create the value that's perceived outside of what you think you can do. People have to know what your best kept secret is.
I love that, man. And Chris, you're gonna have to clip this out because I'm gonna go on a little diatribe here. And here's the thing, Alex, and I want to see if you agree.
Yeah.
We've lived in a dynamic for so long where the realtors hold all of the keys to the kingdom, meaning that like most clients go directly to their realtors. They want to see a house, and then getting approved for a mortgage is an afterthought. But one, I see that that's changing a little bit, and consumers want to come directly to the lender first and have a conversation about what they can afford. But what I'm kind of shocked at is like my plea to the realtors, the ones I work with and the ones that work with you, like engage your loan officers early, because guess who's had to spend the last 20 years of their career explaining all of the numbers behind the transaction, right? When somebody's buying a $500,000 house, I don't tell them, oh, you're buying a $510,000 house. I say, no, the house is $500,000. Here's all the fees, the escrow, the title, the appraisal that's associated with it. Here's what you should expect for costs. This is like second nature to you and I. And realtors, rightfully so, because it's a new skill that they're going to have to acquire. They've never had to do that before. So lean on your preferred loan officer and let us do it. I already spend all day breaking down those numbers anyway. What's the difference if I throw in a % or two for the realtor commission on top of what they might be able to get out of the seller? Like, this is an easy conversation for us. And I think realtors are a little scared to ask because we've been in this very one-way relationship for a long time. So what say you to that thought process?
I agree 110%. I think the biggest thing is this. If you don't view us as a partner that's going to be able to provide that additional value and discuss and go over those numbers as a cost to purchasing a home, listen, I wouldn't be surprised if that one day it doesn't go into the APR test, right? Because it's that vital to home ownership. It doesn't have to do with the cost of credit, but it does have to do with obtaining credit. And so, yes, like your loan officer should be able to articulate and provide the value for that dollar amount they're getting ready to spend and break that down as part of the expected fees. Because if we step into it and say, hey, expect anywhere between 2.5% to 3% total closing or total purchase price as your closing cost, what about the 3% that they're also paying the realtor? Now that number's 6, right? And when we look at the bank statements, we have to be able to say, hey, listen, where are we getting this money from? I need to include your money as a real estate professional if you're expecting to get paid as well and can't negotiate that fee to be paid by the seller.
Right.
So I agree 100, and that's part of the value proposition. Here's the thing. Us as loan professionals got to get to the table first to tell people that we're ready to do this, or else we're going to starve. Because if your competition does it first, you're in second place.
Well, and by the way, if somebody, because, I've got a lot of realtors, and this has kind of been the evolution in LA. It was super hard to get an offer accepted. So they were like, oh my goodness, super hard to close a deal. You have to work with Scott. I trust them. And then if I'm being honest, over the last 5 years, the banks have kind of caught up, right? B of A, Wells Fargo, whatever. They're more or less going to close the deal. Might take a little bit longer, might be whatever, but they'll wait around the client, meaning they'll wait around for a little bit lower rate. And so the realtors have not been as aggressive as saying, hey, you got to work with Scott. He'll explain all the numbers. But all it takes is one loan officer at B of A or Wells Fargo who tells your client, yeah, you don't really have to pay that anymore. That's negotiable. Or, hey, did you know I've got my buddy who's a realtor over here who will represent you on the buy side for 0.5%? Watch that happen 1 or 2 times to the realtors, and they're going to get real particular again about which loan officer they want to work with and they want their clients talking to. Because I can already see a world, Alex. I know it's coming, and I'm going to use them by name because I won't use them by name. Let's just say there's a really big lender out there that makes you think that you can just go online and get a loan super fast. I know that they have preferred realtor relationships within their company. So you're telling me the client goes there, they're planning to work with, realtor Bill, and then the loan officer says, hey, with this new lawsuit and this new settlement on how we have to disclose commissions, Bill's going to charge you 3% to represent you, or you can go to one of our in-house people and they'll only charge you 0.5%, which we will try to negotiate from the seller. Like realtors are going to lose deals left and right if they don't have a trusted partner having those financial conversations alongside them and singing the same tune. It's going to get ugly.
It'll get bad, and there's companies that do it right now. Some of them are automobile associations that pay to use a preferred person because they scrape some of the commission from the preferred person, so they switch them maybe when you call to get your insurance quote. There's also companies that have to do the Marine Corps' Uber drivers, that type of bank that also do something very similar. And like you said, there's people that drive rocket ships that may say, hey, we need to switch here. We're going to save you a ton of money. Don't pay $15,000, pay $5,000. And and guess what? The person that they're paying $5,000 to, you just grease my pockets. Guess what? You get the next deal, right?
Yep.
They're looking for the low hanging fruits. And yes, your non-trusted advisor can do that. That's the one thing, and this is a side topic, but that's the one reason why I don't get a real estate license. Because if I was a realtor and I went to Alex, my loan officer, who is also a licensed real estate professional, I'd have no trust in that individual.
Yeah.
Right.
Oh, I've thought about it frequently, getting my real estate license, because people always come to me and they're like, hey man, I don't really need an agent. Could you just help me out write this contract? And I'm like, no, I actually need to refer you back to an agent because I just don't want to cross streams there. It's not good.
Right. Exactly. It just gets you in trouble, opens you up to liability. And that's, as loan professionals, we say, hey, you ask me a question about your taxes, you got to talk to your CPA. You ask me a question about a home. If it ain't about the loan, go talk to a real estate agent.
Yeah. Amazing what happens when people stay in their lane.
Yeah.
So I want to keep this episode, and I want to have you on again towards the end of the year, maybe talk about what's going on politically, financially, but I want to keep this one short and sweet because I want it to serve as a quality update to the realtors and lenders out there who will get this at some point in August and are probably going to be too busy to listen to a normal 2-hour Scott Groves podcast because hopefully you've got enough business and refinances. So give us a couple things. One, I need to know your favorite movie and why, because that's just an important conversation we always have to have. 2, what are you most looking forward to going into the second half of the year? And then 3, what would you say to somebody, whether they're a loan officer, a realtor, somebody who randomly stumbles upon this, if they're dealing with the psychological hangovers of the abuse, the abuse of alcohol, et cetera, et cetera. So any way you want to go, hopes and dreams, favorite movie and why, or kind of advice you would give to people that are maybe hiding behind that mask of business or that mask of being a top producer or that mask of alcoholism because they've got a lot of trauma they haven't dealt with.
Yep. So favorite movie, Top Gun. Growing up, I grew up next to March Air Force Base. When I lived in San Diego, we were near Naval Pier or whatever it's called. It's not Naval Pier, but it's slipping my mind what it's called. I wanted to fly planes. And when I walked into the Navy office at 17 years old, they said, you ain't flying our planes, because my vision was gone. They said helicopters. I didn't want to fly helicopters. So Top Gun, my hopes is that the quality continues to rise and the quantity escapes out of the industry so we can continue to provide top level service to our partners and our clients so we can regain our reputation as being a person that's needed, not a person that is there but unwanted, right? So we're cleansing. As far as advice, here's what I'm going to suggest. Whether you want to do this or whether or not you don't, it's all up to you. But I want you to reach into your core and I want you to figure out why it is that you do what you do on a day-to-day basis, because there's a reason beyond what it is we tell ourselves. If you walk to an employee that's W-2 that works at GM, for example, there's a GM factory right down the road from my office, and you say, why do you come to work every day? That person is going to say, for money. Sure, that's the surface, but there's a reason. And that reason may be so I can provide for my family, but it goes deeper. And you got to discover that deeper portion. You don't go for money. You don't go for your family. You may go because you want to create an environment for your children to thrive. This way they don't have to worry about the financial situation that you did as a kid. And so you want to provide an exceptional experience. So that's what gets you up to work 80 hours a week, right? So if you're a real estate agent or a loan officer, and you look up and you're getting booted in the teeth every time you do, remember why you're looking up the next time, because whatever it is, I promise when you have that deeper rooted reason for looking up, you will never, ever, ever quit unless that reason disappears.
I love that, man. That's the way to end the podcast, bro. Thanks for being on, and let's talk in a couple months.
Yeah, sounds good. Thank you so much for the opportunity. It's greatly appreciated, Scott.